Well, Banlist is out, and if anything is gonna get me back into the channel, then it's definitely Monarchs being at full power. One of the probably historical best budget decks ever, and yeah, I thought let's try and make this deck work. I was super happy. All ban lists that didn't bring Pantheism back. We sat through this and now we're here. And yeah, one of the biggest problems, first of Monarchs in general, well, hand traps are now a thing. Back in the days, maybe an Effect Veiler was a thing. Ash Blossom slightly started, but it was like way after Pantheism was already limited. So there's a whole new problem section this deck has to address now, because you can't just go into easy play, set up your whole board and wait that your opponent can't break it, because you kind of have like a somewhat Mystic Mine kind of spell. So if your opponent doesn't have a trap spell and trap removal, then yeah, that can be awkward. But sadly, there's enough cards that do stop you in your tracks. And I have thought, well, what can you do? You can't really prevent them, because Caught by the Grave also is now at 1. You could play the one Caught by the Grave. I'm going to talk in my side deck, about some options that you could play in the deck that I decided not to, because they didn't work out for me in testing too well. But you could if you want to be a bit more spicy. Well, let's start right in. Triple Erebus, because, well, the card is just pretty neat. Looping one card out of your opponent's starting hand can always be nice. Ether, good disruption during your opponent's turn. Nice to go for the finishing play as well. Dumping cards into your graveyard, all of that. Vanity's Fiend, well, a card that in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! Basically doesn't let your opponent do that much, but one impermanence basically kills it as well. So yeah, for that kind of problem, you could run one March of the Monarchs with Pantheism being at 3 now. You have the opportunity to easily search this most of the time, so technically you could. I just feel like it's more of a side deck card, possibly. You have to decide. I feel like a lot of people decide not to run it, and I felt the same. One Majesty's Fiend, because it has Monarch stats, and it's basically the trap in monster form, so that is kind of nice. Well, they do different things, but I mean, you know, activating monsters effect, negating effects on the board, it can come down in the end. Well, not just on the board. I mean, negating the activations can be nice with Majesty, so that is always neat. One Kuras you could play too, because you do want to use it on Ether, like sometimes to gain yourself advantage to pop cards your opponent plays. You have to really watch out with Ether though to not miss timing, and it's really awkward. But yeah, that is a thing. So if you want to play that too, you could. I felt like at one end was good enough. Like either you set up your board at the start and build your opponent anyway, so you don't need it that often. Or if you don't get your board set up, then you mainly lose anyway. Here's one of the cards that I included that are kind of new and you don't have to play. There's a lot of options that you could play instead. Link Slayer, for example, is a very good card in that sense. I just like those kind of cards that you can summon if you control no monsters, but they're like level 5 or 6, because you could use them as the tribute monster. So your trap is live, your domain is live, but also could use them as tribute fodder. So basically, best of both worlds, because your hand will start to lack one of those two still. Like even Pantheism is back. You will still brick in like 2 or 3 out of 10 times possibly. Could happen, especially if your opponent disrupts your one thing that you can do. Then that can be quite annoying, and they can't really respond to you summoning that. Because I think there's not an effect chain, so like Ghost Ogre doesn't work either. But like don't can't catch me up on that one. But yeah, that's very nice. So you just can't summon this, and if you have domain, then activate the effect, maybe reduce the level of this card, or just summon Vanities or Majesties, and you're good to go. Sadie's card only has 1900 attack points, so it's quite easy to run over it. But other than that, I feel like it's a good tech card in the deck. What else you could play is actually Apprentice Illusion Magician, because the discard doesn't hurt you too much if you therefore could set up your board. Plus you could play it with triple Magician, so it's not a budget option at all. But if you have it, you could try and make a variant work. You see you have lots of spell traps. Some of them actually do work in the graveyard, do have some synergy with that. And getting a new draw, having tribute fodder as Magician Souls can be super nice, I guess. Yeah, I think it's an option that you could go, but I obviously in a budget deck profile did not decide to include that. Yugioh's Underworld Squire at 3. You could run him at 2 and play the Mithril if you want to, because same thing again, summoning a monster that doesn't have to activate its effect, still better, because yeah, then you could still go for like the double summon play, like summon, I don't know, Kuras and then go into Erebus, for example, because then you have 2 tribute summons if you have Mithril, if you want to. But yeah, that is also part of the whole plan. And Idia, well, I really don't want to play the card at 3 that much, because the amount of times I get hit by effect failure, by impermanence, all these kind of things, it's very annoying, because you will not be able to get your plays through, and then you just have like a card chilling on the board, which what Lithium said in his video, escalation of the Monarchs would kind of solve that problem, but you need to be able to have the card in hand as well. So playing it at 1 doesn't really do much. I felt like when I tested it at 1, it doesn't, like, it helped me like in 1 out of 100 duels basically. The chances were very rare that this whole thing came up. If you played at 3, that's going to come up more, but also it's clogging up your hand randomly when you do not actually have any valuable form of usage for this card. So kind of up to you if you want to use it or not. I felt like it wasn't doing that much good. Yeah. Reason for me playing Voice Raider, by the way, Allure of Darkness at 1. You could swap the Called by Grave if you want to. If you don't care about it, then play double Link Slayer, because the card has 1 more attack and actually has an effect that can come up against certain matchups. Other than that, Allure, it can be a neat Ash Blossom bait. Some people would take it, maybe, I don't know, because they think you don't have one of your play starters in hand. That's why you have to Allure. And then you still do, so you can go for it. Excuse me. And what triple Pantheism, because Pantheism, well, it searched itself, so really great card in general. I don't think I have to argue much for playing that card at 3. Same for Tenacity. You have quite the amount of targets, obviously not as many as if that was like Kurasis or any kind of other Monarchs, or maybe like double Majesty's Fiend and so on. But you will still have enough targets most of the time, so I feel like this card is really strong. One card that I feel like definitely, if you could have played it before, some people did, some people didn't, but I think this card now shines the most, because you can dump Pantheism. Pantheism can actually search itself with its effect. So technically, if you already cycle through stuff or whatever, you can get double Pantheism and then put another card in that they maybe don't want you to get, like Monarchs Erupt, for example, and hope that you might be able to get another Pantheism off of that. Also, it starts any kind of other plays. You can also dump like Prime Monarch. Let's say your Tenacity gets disrupted and you need a play starter in your hand on your field, then you can just send Prime Monarch and get that going. So it's basically the counterpart to Foolish Burial, which can get your Monarch to hand if you dump Erebus and then discard a Monarch spell trap. So that's nice. Plus you can send Idia to recover a banished Monarch spell trap, which is also pretty neat considering Pantheism is a thing and it's not once per turn, at least the first effect. So that is pretty neat. Triple Monarch Stormforth. I'm not sure if that's a thing that you want to do in the main deck or not just play in the side deck. Like, you could play 1, fair enough, searchable and all, but if you're going first and you for some reason don't have Ether, which can happen, I mean, you will not always have the Return of the Monarch set up, because I feel like the Disruptual plays a lot better than searching, for example, Return instead of, I don't know, searching Domain or searching Monarchs Erupt. Obviously, if you, let's say, have Vanity's Fiend, you might want to search Return of the Monarchs. But other than that, Monarch Stormforth isn't going to cut it that much if you're not playing like Escalation, for example, with it. And it's going second. It's totally great. But I feel like going first, it has its niche kind of plays. It sometimes feels a bit win more if you can afford to search this and or have that and go for other plays, then you're probably going to win already. So not sure if that's not going to be a go second side deck card mostly for it, because you could splash stuff like March of the Monarchs and just protect your board a little bit more. Maybe go for 2 or 3 of the Monarchs are up, because that card hits very hard. Maybe play like a Called by the Grave for it, whatever, to get your play started a little bit more. Maybe even 2 Allure of Darknesses. Whatever you want, but you don't want to draw Allure into Allure, so I feel like the 1 is kind of fine for the consistency boost. That's my stance on Stormforth. I will try and playtest with it, without it, and see how it goes, but for the sake of people liking the way that ratio is, I'm just going to put it at 3 now. Return of the Monarchs, well, good searcher. You have to you can chain block with that, which can be nice. You have to still watch out with timings and stuff with Ether on your opponent's turn, and it's a little bit awkward, but all in all, probably a very good card because it does search your Ether and it does set up place then for your opponent's turn, which is very nice. Domain, some form of Mystic Mind in my opinion. It's not as harsh, but that compared with the Monarchs Drop, for example, or with Majesty's Fiend, that can be really, really frustrating to deal with. Especially if you, like, because then it's not enough to just negate your Monarch kind of guy, your tribute monster, because that thing will also have an effect, and yeah, impermanence doesn't get you out of this one, so that can be super nice. So you want to make sure you have that on board, which is a good playmaker with cards like Kaiser Voas Raider, because they don't really have a good effect on their own, but that still sets up an annoying lock, at least, that they have to deal with. One Monarchs Erupt, easily to search. I think it's very strong, especially right now, with stuff like maybe Invoked being played a bit more annoying, the Alistair normal summon. Also Dogmatica, their normal summon to search, that can be a key thing, so they can't get their trap to destroy your stuff, which is nice, I guess. Prime Monarch could play it at 3, I've seen it, but I felt like at 2 it's completely fine. Like, honestly, felt like at 3 it just clogged up my hand a lot. Felt like 2 was always the best ratio in my opinion, is going to be the best opinion moving forward as well. Not the best opinion, the best ratio, what think of it as you want. Yeah, and that's basically the deck profile already. You could play stuff like Zaborg, the Mega Monarch, actually not too bad. Impermanence and effect failure annoy it, but you still have domain then, not too bad. Plus if you pop the Prime Monarch as well, if you still have that set up, then that can be quite nice, destroying your opponent's extra deck. Hitting out all their high link monsters on their end board pieces. So sure, if they have Hulk and Link Cross, but if they don't have anything that they couldn't go into from that point onwards, then they are kind of screwed as well. Sure, there's decks though that you don't want to drop certain things, like Dogmatica comes to mind, certain Shadow variants or whatever. There's things that do want to or should probably better stay in the extra deck. Other than that, I feel like this card is neat enough to be played, but with Allure of Darkness and everything, and I don't know, that didn't resolve as much as I hoped for, but you could always search it with Ether, with Return of the Monarchs. So I feel like being able to first turn disrupt your opponent that much, with basically killing their complete extra deck, that might make it a card at least for the side deck, possibly, if you're playing against a deck that's very combo heavy but doesn't play that many hand traps because the deck space is too clogged up. I don't know, maybe try out Zaborg, the Mega Monarch. It can win you the game, I guess. That's it for the deck profile. Hope you liked it. You know, do all that kind of things other YouTubers tell you to do, and hope you're having a good day.